Oh, so yeah, I've been introduced. My name is Filip Hráček. Simon can't pronounce my last name, which is fine. My name is Filip Hráček. I was at the Flutter team for a while, and Dart team before that. These days I'm here in Prague. Welcome to my hometown. I hope you like it. And I do games and open source development. But today I want to talk about Flutter Mad Science. So what do I mean by mad science in general? I think those are the things that are, like the cliche thing where there's a mad scientist and they have something very impractical but awesome, right? And sometimes it just so happens that that impractical thing later leads to something that's actually very practical. And so that's what my talk is all about. So wow, no. My first, what is Flutter Mad Science? My first Mad Science project that I've ever encountered, I think, is by Wim Leeler, which you probably don't remember. Maybe some of you do. You do, cool, yes. Props up to, Wim. And he did something that he called Perspective on Flutter. And it's this thing that is... I just converted to Dartpad recently, and it is an app that is rotating in three... Wait, no, that's not it. That's bad. Okay, sorry. Yes, that's what I was also. So there's a bug in Dartpad, and I would like to report it right now, where you have the ID and you don't have. Okay, so we're going to my guest. We're going to do it the hard way. So this and this. If you don't know how to do this, by the way, this is a learning experience for you, for free. This should work. But sometimes it doesn't. Ah, Jesus. Yes. Okay. Yeah, and then this should work. ID equals this. Yes. Phew. Okay. Anyway, all right. So this actually is about hacking Dartpad. So this is a fantastic piece of completely impractical but cool app that Wim did in 2018 or 17, I think. And it's just a regular, counter app you all know and love. But it's also a thing that you can rotate, right? And if you look at the code, it's basically just I don't know if you can read it, but there's like a transform, and that transform wraps around the default app. That's it, and there's a gesture gesture detector to do the thing, and it's obviously super impractical. Nobody cares, but it still works. Yeah, like look at this. I can put it here, for example, here. And I can still click on stuff, It's like, just crazy. Anyway, so you'd think, okay, so Wim spent some time doing this, and sure, he learned a little bit about Flutter, but otherwise, he could have learned about Flutter in a probably more efficient way if he just read, about transform, maybe transformed something much simpler than a whole app. And that would be it, right? But no, he did this mad experiment, and it worked. And this led to me later to read his code and be like, oh my God, this actually works. And something connected where I was like, oh, okay, so we have this Flutter thing here, which I was pretty new to, where it doesn't even care if your UI is orthogonal. It allows you to do things like put the whole app into a rotating perspective piece. Right? So that's the first two things that this was helpful for. But then later, I think it was the same year, but I used it again by knowing that this is possible. I was privileged enough to be able to tell people at Flutter Live 2018 that it is now possible to show Google Maps in apps, right? In Flutter apps, I mean. And the boring way to do it, which would be my way to do it normally, is to show just a screen. Like, oh, I can open a screen and it has Google Map in it, right? But instead, what I did, and I have a video of it because it was televised. Hopefully, I can find it. Yeah, is that I had this animated thing with myself, and then I showed that in that animated thing, I can have Google Maps running, and people liked it. So that worked really well, and again, I don't think I consciously knew that I'm reusing Wim's Met experiment, but it had to click a few months before that for me to even think of this idea. All right, but that's still kind of impractical. So let's go and look at Luca, who's here, by the way. Luca, are you? Yeah. So another Met Flutter experiment is by Luca, and now it's not going to work again, right? No, it does. Oh, perfect. So you know how we say that it's all widgets in Flutter, right? So how about a Flutter app with no widgets, 0 widgets? Is that crazy? Yes, it is. Is that awesome? I think so. So in normal people would have main, void main, and then they would have run app in that and a widget, right? But no, Luca is different. Luca doesn't want widgets and run app. So what he does is, this is evil, but this is basically, he says, rendering Flutter binding, and he binds it to a painter, a normal custom painter that you could find in many apps, right? And then he says schedule binding instance.ensure visual update. That's it. And then I can show you the custom painter, but if you've ever done any custom painter, you know this code. This is just like canvas.draw, whatever. And that's this app. So this app literally has 0 widget, and it works. And again, is it practical? No. Does it, is anyone going to do this in their real life? No, of course not. But it can connect the dots for you if you read the code and you realize, well, in one way, Flutter it's all widgets, but in other ways, Flutter it's all custom painter, because you realize, oh, like if you've done some Flutter development in depth, you realize that you can actually do everything that you see in Flutter is a custom painter. It's not really, but like in the end, it translates to these canvas draw calls, and that's very helpful when you try to do things like, I just recently had to do like an animated text widget, right? And you could do it in many ways in Flutter, but one of the ways is to just basically use draw paragraph, canvas.draw paragraph over here, and it just works. And then you can, of course, with paragraph, you can measure how big it is and stuff like this. So it's all custom painter if on the inside, or it's all canvas calls. So again, it gives you a little bit of insight. And there's many other examples. I was going to go through all of them, but I don't think I have the time, and I think there are some more interesting things to talk about. But it can go from things like Matt's Star Wars scroll. So he made a Star Wars scroll with just a regular list view in perspective, right? So that was like an afternoon work. Then Miguel did a Flutter 95, basically a recreation of Windows 95 style and everything, so you can build Windows 95 apps. And then, of course, there's Simon, who made, is this a PlayStation 1 game? Yeah, a 3D engine in Flutter with textures that you can look around a map from a PlayStation 1 game, right? And then there are many others. But let's talk about me. Because not because I have the best math science experiment, but because I know the whole arc of it, right? So one of my first projects in Flutter was called Sci-Fi UI, and I am a big fan of just futuristic user interfaces in movies and games. And I just thought, okay, so this Flutter thing looks interesting. I should give it a try. And I implemented in something like 2 days. I took 2 days and implemented this, which is basically an app that looks as much as I could make it, a sci-fi thing, but it's still a scrollable app. And it is absolutely not practical. Nobody, took it anywhere. I didn't take it definitely anywhere. And it's probably not even if you took this and made something interesting of it, I don't think it would really work for most people, because it's too busy. But yeah, it exists. And for 5 years, the only practical outcome of these 2 days was that, okay, I learned a little bit about, custom paint and animations and stuff like this, because it was pretty early in my Flutter journey. But otherwise, nothing much, right? It was just somewhere sitting somewhere on my huge GitHub page. And just like 2 or 1 year ago, I revisited it, though, and made it into something that's not yet ready, but you can see it in the partner section where I show off this game that I call Giant Robot Game, where I'm like, because it clicked before, where I understood that I don't only need to be a person who likes sci-fi interfaces, but I can actually build them. Then many years later, because it clicked before, I was able to do it. So even things like that can lead to really good outcomes. All right, but let's address the 2 elephants in the room in terms of math science. The first one is Dash, and some of you probably know this history better than I do. But in 2009-10, JavaScript sucked, and but much worse than now, right? So yeah, you could say like, oh yeah, and it's 2023 and JavaScript still sucks. But it really sucked, and it was moving very slowly. It was glacial how it was moving. And so some people at Google had this crazy mad experiment where they said, okay, you know what? We're going to keep working on JavaScript, slowly improving it and making it better. But also, we're going to create this new language, new programming language that will also run in the browser. And it will be faster, and it will be made for actual big apps, right? So it will run faster, it will be more structured, and so on and so forth. And we will call it Dash, and we'll see how it goes, right? And then they renamed it to Dart, and it did not work. I mean, it did work. The language did work, but nobody actually added it to any browsers. And for a long time, it was a failed mad experiment that didn't lead to anywhere. For some years, Dart was this basically a bit more involved TypeScript, where it was always translated to JavaScript, and it's just that was its way. But nowadays, look at us. I think we're all working in Dart, and Dart has had its practical use for sure, but it looked very dim for a long time, And it started as something that a lot of people didn't understand. A lot of people didn't think it's needed. And actually, a lot of people wanted it to fail. And then there's Sky. So that's another weird experiment. And again, maybe you know the history, but this was 5 years later, 2014 or 15, where a few people at Chrome realized, okay, so we have been working on making the web faster for the past many, many years. And now all the low-hanging fruits are gone. Like, it takes us months to make one thing 5% faster, just one little thing in Chrome, right? And what if we did this weird experiment where we basically rip everything out of the web that is slow? So they just like took the web, the platform like HTML, JavaScript, and they just took away everything that made it slow, CSS, and just kept it very focused on just the parts that are actually fast or that can be made fast. And again, is it practical? No, of course not. Like, how can you even think about removing parts of like big, huge chunks of the web just to make it faster? Like, web is made on the promise of backwards compatibility. You can't just break it. It would be like someone saying in Flutter, someone saying, you know what, we found out that widgets are slow, so no more widgets. that would just not work, right? So for the web, that was the same thing. It was a very mad experiment, and they did this. This was Adam Barth and Eric Seidel, and later I think Ian Hickson, and I'm probably forgetting about the other people. And they did this for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, they were working on this mad experiment. And after 2 weeks, they made the whole web something like 60% faster, which is crazy. Like, think about what you can do in 2 weeks. They made the web 60% faster. And so they were like, okay, so we have something here. It's definitely better than we expected. But yeah, maybe it's not something for the web itself because, yeah, you can't just break the web. So what they did, they packaged it, and they made this little portable user interface engine, and then they just gave it to people, and they called it Sky. I think I was at the unveiling of Sky on Dart Summit 2015, and I remember I was like, what's the big deal? I didn't see the point of rotating rectangle on Android made by Flutter. Done by Dart, but it kind of worked, and now it's called Flutter. And again, we're all here to see that it's actually pretty practical. So yeah, so where does this all lead? I hope that I have convinced you that it's okay if you have the inclination to do these weird, super impractical, mad experiments, that you can do it and you should do it, because they often, not always, but they often lead to something that is much more practical and much more useful. I know that some people are just not, interested in this, and it's fine, but if you are, don't prevent yourself from doing these mad things that I've just shown you. And if you lead a team, if you are a manager or something like that, then I would urge you to let people know that it's okay to sometimes do mad science in Flutter or anywhere else, because these things lead to innovation. And as you know, business people, innovation means money, right? So it's just a thing. So anyway, thank you for your attention. As always, be excellent to each other. We're in this big community, not just here, but generally, be excellent to other human beings. Be as mad as you can muster. And thank you. One other thing that I know that you can just, I know that there's lunch and stuff, so you can just start leaving. But I bought this specially for this conference, and and I started getting people to write their names on it. Like, Majid is there, and I hope that all the speakers will be listed here. And I thought it would be cool to have like a little charity, how to say that, auction. And the way I want to do it, I don't want your money, but the way I want to do it, you can come up to me in my booth, and you can see this list, and it says Philip is pledging, €10 to Doctors Without Borders, and you can be like, no, actually, I, Joe, or whatever, pledge €12 to Transparency International. And then if you're the last one on this page by the end of this day, I'll give you the thing with all the famous people on it. And all I will want from you afterwards is that you show me that you actually donated the money to the cause that you pledged for. So if you wanted always to, like, give money to turtles or whatever, this is your chance to actually also get some cool swag from it. Anyway, yeah, all right.